Hello and welcome to Nature Connections. I'm Camille and I'm a designer and the founder of Project Roots, which is an art and lifestyle brand. Thanks to everyone who is watching or listening to this video. So with Nature Connections, we give you refreshing and inspiring thoughts and tips to bring nature into your life and into your home. So we hear the stories of people from all paths of life, but who have one thing in common, which is that they help us to connect with nature and live a more rooted life. So in today's episode, I'll be speaking with Henriëlle van den Dragt. I hope I nailed that.
Yes, you did.
Hi, Henriëlle, and thanks so much for joining me today from the Netherlands.
Hi, good to be here.
Great. Henriëlle is a Dutch designer and the founder of Woodtique, an art label that sells geometrical wall art that's made out of only wood and created from leftover and waste wood. I actually found Woodtique by spending time on Instagram, which is a good outcome of my binging, but also a great way to meet fantastic artists and people who work with nature. So I'm super excited to finally be speaking with you today after we're both recovered from various illnesses. And I'm super curious to discover more about your story, your beginnings as a wood artist, if we can call you that. We'll discuss that. Why you chose to work with wood, what inspires you about wood as a material, and more generally, like what nature means to you and how nature is present in your life. So yeah, if you could please start by introducing yourself and sort of sharing a bit with us about what you do and why you started designing and creating this beautiful wood panel pieces, if we can call it.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for inviting me to the conversation. Love it. We were briefly discussing how when you are designing or making art, you're mostly on your own. So it's always good to speak to people in some kind of the same situation. So it's great. Well, yeah, a little less than a year ago, I was still working for a bank as a consultant. So totally different life than I'm living now. But for some time, for some time, I was not feeling quite in place over there. So, well, I talked to my manager about it, and I said, well, I'm not feeling quite sure of my place here, and that I'm on the right path. Although I built my career and always knew what my next step was going to be. At that last job, I did not have any ambition for a next step, or I just felt a bit lost. So we were kind of having conversations about what my future was going to look like, and what I wanted out of it, and if I was in a surrounding where I could put my talents to use. And well, after a few conversations, we came to the conclusion that that wasn't really the case. So one big thing for me is that I can use my creativity, and I thought I could in the jobs that I had, but I kind of found out that a big part of my creativity wasn't putting to use, and I wasn't putting my creativity to use in a way I wanted to, which made it bigger and bigger, which kind of made me powerless in the end. So I was running out of ideas, I was running out of motivation, and well, at the end of that period, I decided to quit my job at the bank, and that was the Christmas 2020. Yeah, Christmas 2020. I after the Christmas holidays, I called my manager and I said, well, I made a decision. I'm going to quit here, and but I do need some time to figure out what I want, or I have to create the headspace to be able to concentrate and focus on what's coming next on the path that I want to I want to walk. So that's what he gave me. He gave me some time. I could work fewer hours, and in that time, where I had more free time, I started woodworking because I just wanted to get out of my head. And like everyone, like the whole world, I was working from home for months at the time. So I
Yeah.
really want to work with my hands, and that's where it kind of started. That I just wanted to make something with my hands, and I'm from a my father is a carpenter all his life, so the woodworking is kind of in the family.
Ah.
So I thought, okay, well, let's make something out of wood. And my brother has a woodworking factory, and he said, okay, don't buy new wood because I have those leftovers here in the factory, and just come to grab them, and you can make whatever you want to make. And that's where it started. It wasn't even the plan to make a business out of it. It was just to get out of my head. But while I was working on that first piece that was meant to be in my home, which isn't because somebody really wanted to have it.
Oh, that's a good problem to have.
So I started thinking, well, if my brother has these leftovers, and he is quite a big factory, and he is quite sustainable also. So if he has leftovers, what happens to all the furniture makers and the other woodworking factories? What are they doing with all their leftover wood? And so I started to make some calls, and I got the same answer from almost everybody. It was like, well, first we pile it up in the corner of the workshop, and then and then it is kind of taking too much space, and then we chop it all into pieces, and then we just throw it in the fire.
So they
Which
burn
is,
it.
yeah, they burn it. Yeah. So I thought, well, that's really a shame because it's top quality wood mostly. Furniture makers, they work with the best wood there is, and pretty big amounts of wood are being wasted that way. So yeah, well, I started making more pieces because my brother had quite a lot of wood from previous years, and people started asking, can I buy it? And this is so great because it's leftover wood, and so good that you're making art out of it. And well, and that's where the plan for a boutique kind of got together, and so I started to make appointments with furniture makers and wood factories, and I visited them, and I asked them if they can put aside the leftovers for me. And so every month I drive here around the region, and I have like five places that I make a brief stop, and then they put in they how do you say it? I just pick up the woods, the leftover wood, and I take it home, and then I make art out of it. So
amazing.
That's kind of the story. That it's like a very brief part of the story that like the very brief summary of how my last year went.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny because we both started at the same time, actually, like December 2020, well, January 2021. Did you have any sort of affinity with wood at all before? Well, obviously your father being a carpenter and your brother being in the business. I imagine that you'd been in this, or at least in this world, but did you personally like have any creative contact with wood before, or was this like really completely new?
Well, not in the way that I'm doing now, but a year before I started, my girlfriend and I, we converted a van into a camper van, and that's kind of where the seed was planted, that I really love, because the whole van is mostly made out of wood, the whole furniture in the van. So that's where the seed was planted for, well, you can do a lot of stuff with the wood, and it's great material, and I loved it. I love the smell. I really love the smell of wood, and that's kind of where it started. And besides that, I grew up in a place here in the Netherlands, in the middle of the woods. So I spent a lot of time there as a child, and so trees and wood, it's I don't know, it's kind of a material that just speaks to me. I always feel really at home when I smell wood, or when I smell the woods,
yeah.
when I walk into the woods. It feels like home. So
Mm.
I think that is the reason why, why wood as a material is really, I don't know, in contact with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what types of wood do you source? Is it like a specific type, or because you get the offcuts or the whatever they don't use for furniture making, you don't really choose, I guess. But what kind of woods do these furniture makers use, and what is the type of wood that you use to make your art?
Yeah, well, mostly oak wood. Which is where there are a lot of oak tables and oak furniture that is being made, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's the mother of all woods, the the oak tree. I really love the variety of that type of wood. You have different types of oak, and if you put them together, they kind of look alike, but they're also really they're also really different. They have lots of cool drawings on them, and it makes me, when I'm making, oak is kind of the type of wood that I can really combine different color tones, because they're so different. It depends on which part of the tree I'm using at that specific piece. Makes the colors all different, and even if I make the same artwork twice, it looks totally different, because of, oak is just surprising me every time. So yeah, so mostly oak, but also pine wood, which is coming from the Netherlands here. But yeah, well, I think oak is my main type of wood that I always have in my how do you call it, my
your storage, or your
storage? Sorry. Yeah, that I always have in storage, just because I'm working with a lot of furniture makers that work with wood, with oak. So
that makes sense.
So oak and pine is mostly
you're right, there's such a beautiful grain to the wood, and that's what's so amazing, is that from one tree you can have such different like it's just such a versatile material to use. Like everyone will, it's a piece of art in itself, like all the marks and the colors, and
yes, it's so beautiful, and it never bores me. It's always telling different stories. Also, when you see when you see the grain in the wood, you can see, well, this is where like a branch, is it a branch? Is that where the branch has been. And then you realize, every time I work with it, okay, well, this just was a tree, and it had branches and everything. It was growing, and it's still living material.
Do you feel like there's, in a way, you're like honoring, this tree? Like, from what you say, it sounds like you're almost like, thanking this tree for giving you the opportunity to sort of use it in your work. And
definitely. The concept of Woodtique is, it has always been my goal with everything I make, that the wood that I put the wood on stage, because I really want to. I always tell the story of the waste wood. I always tell the story of the furniture makers that have leftovers, and I see my art as a way of telling that story of this material that we use in numerous of things. We always got used to wood being around, that we almost forget that it's not an endless source. We really need to find better ways to use leftover wood, to bring it back to the market, in order to make a more sustainable economic chain out of it. I don't know if I give it the right words, but
absolutely,
I think you know what I mean. So that has always been the goal. It's not only the artwork itself, it's always the story behind it, because that's what really what I really want. I want to put it on the stage, the wood, and people are like, oh wow, this is a beautiful artwork. And then somebody else says, well, did you know it was made out of waste wood? Did you know how much waste wood there actually is? So it's kind of to make a statement. Every piece is a little statement.
I love
and
this.
I'm not going to solve the whole waste wood problem with my artworks, because I'm just one person and I can only do so much. But I hope in some way it can be a conversation starter sometimes, even if that's, yeah.
That's amazing. I love this. I mean, you're alone now, but maybe you'll hire a whole, team of mini yous who will also use waste wood and, make all kinds of new pieces with it. So you're definitely starting a real movement in, and I totally like what you said about like closing up the chain almost, like, because also I think one thing I learned from another from Bruce Saunders, another person I interviewed in Nature Connections, is the fact that, wood, like you say, like the leftover wood is burnt. And when you burn wood, it releases the carbon into the atmosphere. And so that's also like not a good thing, right? In terms of like how this chain is done and what happens at each stage. So reusing it in such a way that values it and values that waste is really amazing. And it's true that a lot of us have wooden floors, but you would never look at your floor and think like, oh, how beautiful. Well, you do when you buy a house or when you move in and you appreciate it. But then very soon enough, you put some rugs, you walk on it, you're just upset at the stains or the marks, but you don't look at it or appreciate it for its natural beauty.
No. Yeah. Exactly. And I'm not saying we shouldn't use any wooden furniture or something, not at all, because it's very sustainable material also. And so I think it's great that there are making use of wood with building houses. And I think that's a really good thing. The thing is that we are so used to having it around us and to having it in huge amounts. You can buy every type of wood in the stores, and so we are so used that it's there, that we stop thinking about what is needed to even get it there. So it's such an important material for us. So we really should be more mindful about how we use it, and even and when there's a lot of leftovers, that we find better solutions to reuse it.
Yeah, definitely. And so can you tell us a bit more about your process, like how you work, and like, where these designs are born from, like how you imagine these pieces and how you imagine the person to appreciate them and look at them when it's on the wall?
Yeah. Well, I try to draw my designs first, which is going okay. But when I am actually putting the draw into the real thing, it always turns out completely into something else.
Okay.
So, but because when I'm, like I said, sometimes I have like these two pieces of wood, and I think, oh, okay, this tone of color with this it's very nice in the contrast and in the contrast.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it different, and then I'm going to use those colors with those colors, and it turns out into completely different artwork. So, well, I'm kind of intuitive sometimes. Of course, there are also sometimes designs that I draw and I make them exactly the way I draw. I have drawn them. But most of the time I just start, and along the way my design shapes, and I make the wood kind of the decision maker.
I love that. Yes.
So this is mostly the case. I do also customized designs, but I never let the customer decide it all the way. I always say, okay, look into my previous work and tell me what you like and why you like it, and tell me what kind of wood and colors speak to you, and then I'll make something for you that fits you, and the rest you have to trust, and it's creative freedom. Because I don't like to people to send me like examples of something that they've seen, and other works or other woodworks, and say, okay, I want it exactly like this. No,
no, yeah,
I don't take any fun in that.
it's a co-creation where you're creating part of, I mean, it's your creativity at the end of the day that you're putting into these pieces and in these creations. So
yes. And also in creating process, when I'm creating my collections, because sometimes I make a series, which are some 5, 7, 10 artworks sometimes at the same time. And at the time, I'm never really realizing that, but when they're finished, they're always kind of reflecting on my personal process at the moment. There's always in the forms or in the abstract, in the forms and in the designs, there's always some kind of story that reflects back on the process that I personally went through at that in that period. So, but it's always in retrospective.
Actually, tell us more about that, because I know, like, I saw a lot of your pieces have names that are actually related to nature or natural cycles and movements. With, I think there's one called equinox, and then I think I also remember like I think cinnamon, which is also like a natural product. And is there one called gold or golden, and that to me like really felt like a warm, sunshine, summer lights. Tell us a bit more about that then. Like, how does the naming relate to how you create it or what it evokes to you?
Well, the pieces you're referring to are for my autumn series, and I really love autumn. It's by far my favorite season. I was born in autumn. Oh, really?
Ah, you were born in autumn.
Yeah, I was born in October, and so autumn is by far my favorite season. The colors, the woods are at their most beautiful in autumn. So that was really the inspiration for the autumn series. And equinox, it happened. That was kind of the masterpiece of that series, right? So equinox happens twice a year. It depends on it's where the time of the year where the day is as long as the night. It has something to do with the moon also, and so the whole changing seasons, whole autumn, it was really the inspiration for that series. So it's also with the warmer tones of wood. And equinox is kind of a special work for me. I don't know. I have like my connection with the moon or something that I never knew I had. But I feel like the moon is very wise thing up in the air. And so when I learned and read about equinox, I thought, oh, well, this really speaks to me. And the day as long as the night has something to do with my aunt dying last year. And I don't know, she was always connected to the moon, and equinox kind of gives me hope. Like whenever the night is long, there's also another day that is bright and shiny, and she was always very positive. And so it was personal work for me, but most of the works are kind of personal to me. But I do realize that after I'm done, when they're done, I look at it and I say, oh wow, this is really this is what I see, this is what I made, and I made it probably because I was feeling that way.
That's fascinating, actually. The fact that you don't necessarily notice as you're making it, creating it with your hands, with your ideas, with your soul, with like touching the material, and like it's a bit of a trance, I guess. Like you're just creating this piece and interacting with it, and then looking at it in the mirror. It's like looking at it is almost like looking at yourself, like and
it's also because equinox was kind of at the time I realized it was personal to me, and then I got it out into the world, and I got a call from a customer, and she was like, well, this is it really speaks to me. feels really special because I think it was her stepmom that passed away, and she said, well, we really want to have something in our house that kind of reminds us of her. And I don't know, that the whole equinox piece, it just speaks to us. So we really wanted to just call you and ask you if it was still available. And she just really wanted to talk to me about it. And so that's when it hit me, that feeling that I put into the work, that somebody else might look at it and say, okay, well, great, and just walk right by. But the people who are actually feeling, or in some kind of maybe same emotional level, they see or feel exactly the same as the way that I feel about work. So that was really special. So and they bought it, of course, and I brought it to their house, and they sent me pictures of where it's hanging, and they really made kind of a ritual out of it. So she invited her father to unpack the work, and they put it on the wall together, and it's now like this big statement piece in their house as a reminder of their stepmom. And I don't know, it's heartwarming.
Yeah,
and also feels like it's exactly the place where that work needed to go.
Yeah, with your energy and like your creativity, you managed to share that emotion and like really connect to other people who had that same feeling in their lives, which is absolutely incredible to do that through a piece. And through the creation of it and the name and like the whole ensemble like created, that it vibrates so much in someone else. That's really cool.
And the fact that I was just realizing, the fact that I'm talking to you with these words to describe that process is so new to me. If you would have told me this a year ago, I would have probably been much more in my head and tried to make like some kind of perfect answer. But this is also what nature does, and what being in touch with nature does. It makes you more pure, your intentions more pure, and also your words. Sometimes the way I speak about my work, it's almost like there are living human beings, but but I really feel that way. And I used to probably, if you would ask me this a year ago, I would probably be a little bit ashamed of it, to choose those kind of words to describe a work, or to describe my process. But right now it feels just really good, because that's really the way it is. And it's sometimes maybe hard to explain to people that that are less connected to nature. But for me, this is really a big change. I used to be a little bit harder, and but it made me softer. It made me more pure.
Like you've peeled some layers and you've gotten more to the core.
Yes, to what it's about, and not being in my head about what other people might think, or if they would think I'm silly, or if they would think that I'm soft, or not at all. This is what I do, this is what I feel, and you're more than welcome to feel the same, and to talk to me about it. And if you don't feel anything, it's all right.
Yeah, it sounds like being in closer connection to nature through your work, through the materials, but also and love to hear a bit more about your life as well, in a very natural place. Like it feels like that's just kind of removed the high level social dynamics that kind of make you more outside of yourself than inside of yourself, and sort of less in connection with your own emotions and your own like nature, I guess, as a person.
Yes.
And it's like
I think, I don't know, do you recognize that? Or
absolutely. I definitely recognize that, like working closer to nature, being more attentive to it, and mostly being less in contact with people. Actually, it's both good and bad, but I do think it definitely removes a layer of fear and a layer of confrontation of your own emotions with other people's judgments. And I think that tied to being closer to more real things, which are natural elements. And like you said, you're describing your relationship with the moon as well, and how, like, you know, connecting to that energy, like it's very humbling, and it's very sort of, it just brings you back to, yeah, honesty, purity, like you say, like a more, more
it's more
rooted
genuine.
and
Yeah.
simple being, in a way. But actually, I'm curious, because you really shifted completely, like, your life. You were in banking for a long time, so corporate environments, in an office, I imagine, you know, being at a desk or seeing clients maybe, but like in a high pressure, high executing environments. And then you not only changed your work entirely, and now you work with your hands, in a woodworking studio, I imagine, and you were telling me, moved to a more natural place, near forests and rivers, and so can you tell me more about how that transition has impacted you? Well, we were talking a bit about this now, but
yeah,
can you elaborate a bit on how that's felt, like making this whole shift of life, and also, yeah, a bit more about your studio as well and how you work?
yeah. Well, let me begin with the whole shift from the corporate to working with my hands. It kind of, it was kind of an almost like a natural process. You start something, and then you move up the hours that you are working with your hands, and you work fewer hours in corporate business, because I really, that is something that I would, if anyone is trying to find a way into a shift from an office job into another job, give yourself the time to adjust, give yourself the time to develop in that, and to really sink in that new situation. You don't have to just quit on one day and start a new thing the other day. You really need to give yourself some time and headspace. So that's what I really did. I worked 4 days and 1 day off, and then I worked 3 days and 2 days off, until at the last few weeks I worked 2 days for the bank and 3 days for myself. I did that for like 6 months in total before I fully quit. So that was really, that is, I think, giving yourself the time and the space to sink into that, to really grow into a new situation, is really something I would recommend everybody. If of course that is something that is possible for you. For me, in the bank was really thinking with me. They were really open to what I needed. So that was absolutely great. So I was really lucky to have that too. So that was one thing. As far as my moving away from the city, it had financial how do you say it, reasons,
motivations, or
because in Utrecht, where I used to live, the houses were very expensive, and well, I knew that I wanted to go further as an entrepreneur, so things would be a little bit more wobbly and wiggly, and more how do you, exciting, maybe more insecure. I'm sorry, I sometimes need to really,
that's fine.
switch in my head from the Dutch to English. So it was more insecure. So we really didn't want to have any financial problems or have to worry about that. So we decided, okay, let's move to a place in the Netherlands where it's a little bit less expensive. But also, this is the area where we are living now, is the area where I grew up. And that is also something, in retrospect, that has really helped me to sink into this new situation, because going back to your roots really makes you more powerful. I really believe that with all my heart. If you are in doubt of everything, or if you feel wobbly or wiggly in your life, just go back to your roots. Find out where you come from, why you are the way you are, why do you love things, explore the things that you always took for granted, or that you never really knew why that is, but find out why that is, because there's a lot of good information there, and there's also where your power is. So that is kind of it all fell into together, and yeah, I think it was. I didn't do it on purpose, all those things together at the same time, but it kind of happened. And I think that also happens when you're open to new paths. Then you kind of guide it into like this new situation. And so that is the moving part. What was your question?
Well, just like, so now you live in a more natural place, you were saying, like close to a forest, and I think you're saying your girlfriend as well is really like close to more close to water, and she enjoys that as well. And so how, like, just understanding how you enjoy your current environment, and also your studio setup, and like give us an idea of, you know, what your space looks like, what your environment looks like when you're creating these wood pieces.
Yes. Well, the place I live, the area we live in right now, is really surrounded by woods and by water. So that's great. Like I said, my girlfriend is from more of the north of the Netherlands, and grew up with boats and everything, and grew up on the water. And I grew up here in the woods. So we have like this perfect combination of surroundings right now that really feel like home for the both of us. My studio is located in my birth town.
Wow.
And
creating straight from the roots.
Yes, and I actually started because I just got into a new studio, but I started in the shed on my parents, next to my parents' house. So where I used to horse ride, and my horse was in the shed, and the horse, I quit horse riding a very long time ago. So right then and there, where I used to go to my horse, and there we created space for a little studio to get me starting. And a little before Christmas last year, my brother called me, and he said, well, you have to come here, because I want to show you something. And like I told before, he has this woodworking factory. So he said, okay, well, I have this space. It's like 50 square meters. And if you want to rent it, it's yours. I'm not renting it out to anyone else, but I heard you were looking for a new space, and I wanted the space with daylight. I told him all that, and I asked him to keep an eye open for me for the coming year. And probably he thought about it, and thought, okay, well, maybe I can help my sister out. And
really nice.
So he called me, and it was came kind of as a surprise. And he said, do you want it? And I said, yeah, I really want to rent that from you. So the whole January was moving out of my old space and moving into the new one, which is really great, because you have to imagine, I am in a woodworking factory. It's all men. I have my space with my doors, and it's not like they are in my studio, but I see them walking around, and they wave to me when they go on having coffee and everything. So it's all men. It's like a whole kind of a masculine environment right there. And here I am as an artist in the middle of that factory, creating art of wood. And I sometimes they tell me, I don't understand. People actually buy this? Yes. So it's really great, because they see me with my both feet on the ground, and so in their eyes, I'm probably that weird artist.
Yeah. But at the same time, they get to see like what someone else makes with the wood they also use.
Yes, so, it's great. And then they are also very curious, and also sometimes they pop in and they say, well, I have like these leftovers from the stairs that I just made. Do you want me to keep it for you, or can I bring it here? And I said, yeah, bring it here. And so it's great. It's a good place to be, but it's also I don't know, it's also a new journey. To be there as a woman in woodworking is also sometimes challenging in ways that if you go to the how do you make the wood store? Does that work? And the people there tend to really think that they need to explain things about machines and wood to me.
You're like, yeah.
But also to move in that environment as a woman in woodworking, as an artist, it's really it's funny, and it's educating, and yeah, also inspiring in a way.
Yeah.
When I walk out of the studio, I can walk right into the woods, so that's also great. So when I want to take a walk on my lunch break, it's like in 3 minutes I'm right in the woods, so it's perfect. It's
so you're right in, like, you have the full chain close to you.
Yeah, chain.
The
and
trees.
Also,
yeah.
And also my father and my mother, they live right next at the end of the street of the studio. So they pop in every now and then. And my father, of course, is a carpenter. So he sometimes, when I have like a complex situation going on, he's like, well, you can solve that by he has all these tips and tricks from all these years that he worked with wood. And so it's also, yeah, I learn a lot from him. Because he has all this experience with wood and with machines and everything. So that's also really nice that he just sometimes pops in, and then I'm like, oh, Dad, I really have a problem. How can I best solve this? And so yeah, well, it's great. It's all really great. It's all there. It's the roots, it's the environment, it's the woods, it's all there.
It's so wonderful. Like, just hearing you speak, I feel like in a cocoon of like home and comfort, and not only from like the wood, the material, but the fact that like it's almost like all your senses are completely attuned, like in sync with the trees and the wood, which is the outcome of like what we make from the trees. But like the fact that you're able to go walk around, like see with your eyes, you can smell the wood, which you've talked to us about, that smell that you love, and then you're obviously touching it and touching the grain and seeing the life of the wood in it. And what other senses are there? Yeah, listening to obviously the the woodworkers, like, you know, working the wood and having, you know, that comfort from your family as well. And it's just feels like such a whole and complete like environment, and a really nurturing one, related to nature, but also to like what you've created. It's fascinating. I hope I can come visit you one day, honestly. Like, I'm hearing this and I'm like,
welcome.
I'm gonna come.
Are you ever in Holland sometimes, or
I don't know, but I'll make it work.
yeah. You really need to call me if you do.
Thanks. I feel so drawn to what you've shared, just like being so close to the raw, the rawness of nature, and like being like so humble to that you can create pieces out of art out of the woods. It's really something special. It's been really great hearing you speak about all this, and there's so many things that you've said that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to listen to them again and write them down. This whole feeling of needing to go back to your roots when you feel unstable, and how that's the most important thing. Like, I really resonate with that, and I'm so like touched to hear you say that as well, because it really feels like, like I'm not alone in feeling this as well. And this relationship to nature and feeling very pure, and that's also something that I hadn't thought about. So I really loved hearing you say that. So yeah, thanks so much. I actually have one last question, which I always ask, which is I don't know if you have an answer to it, but it's is there a specific tree in your life that sort of evokes memories, or whether it's a type of tree or a specific tree that was in your childhood or in your immediate environments, or maybe it's just, you know, the forest. But I'm wondering if anything comes up for you.
Well, the first thing that comes up is the oak tree as a type of tree. I don't know. It's just, I feel that it's always very, very wise. So that would probably be my answer. And of course, just the trees that are the trees in the woods that I grew up in, they also feel familiar because they have been there all my life, because they're the same trees, are the same places where I used to ride or race with my horse. The trees are still there, and everything else changes, and everything is insecure, but the nature is just going on, and the trees stay the same and growing. And there was one special tree which I will show you later on. It was on a walk a few weeks back. I even posted about it. I don't know if you've seen it. And it was two trees next to each other, and the roots of the one tree were totally curled around the other tree. It was hugging the other one, which is really great to see.
Okay.
And it was really special. And that was I don't know, there was so much wisdom in it. I posted about it, and I said, you know, what I learned from this is that you can lovingly grow around an obstacle, and you need each other's roots, and you can just, yeah, I don't know. It was really beautiful. I will send it to you definitely, because I think you would appreciate it. Yeah. So that was kind of special to see.
Yeah. Wow, great answers. I also love the oak trees. You're right. They really have this ancestral energy and this strength and wisdom to them. So great, great shots. Thank you so much, Henriëlle. It's been so wonderful, and really happy that we got to hear from you about your life and all your wise words and feelings and deeper emotions about your work now. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again.